Hey everyone, it's Christian here from the Student Success Center.
And Elaine from Lyons New Media Center in Mills Library. Today, we will be shifting gears into post-production and showing you how to edit together a music video.
In this tutorial, we're going to be going through a common video editing workflow, demoing our go-to approach to video editing, and explaining how tools function in Adobe Premiere Pro. If you don't have access to Adobe Premiere Pro, knowledge of workflow, approach, and tools can be applied to other video editing software, such as iMovie or Windows Movie Maker.
The post-production process is composed of multiple phases. Usually, an editor does not come to a final product in one sitting. There are iterations of video cuts that are reviewed by key stakeholders before continuing on in the editing process. If you are working in a production team, the key stakeholder would be someone like the director. If you are working in a group project, key stakeholders would be your group members. And if you are working on a personal project, the key stakeholder might be yourself or some peers that you value the opinions of. The post-production phases commonly include the assembly cut, the rough cut, the fine cut, and the final cut. The reason for having multiple phases or cuts in the video editing process is so that we can catch errors or adjustments as soon as possible. Since working with video footage can be intensive, producing large files to export and share, reviewing multiple cuts at varying stages is a proven, efficient workflow. In this tutorial, we will be walking you through what is completed in each of these phases as we edit together a music video from start to finish. Before you begin editing, it is important to organize your footage. I like to keep my video projects in a separate folder and clearly label the aspects of each folder. Organizing and labeling your footage will help you to compile and edit your video more efficiently. A very important tip is to always back up your files. Editing can be very intensive on your computer, so make sure you save often and back up your work.
Alright, so as Elaine had mentioned before, organizing your workflow is integral to having a successful video project. So what I've done here is I've kind of organized the video footage into its own folder. This one I titled Digital Skills Series Post-Production, and inside the folder we have all of our working files. We have the WAV file, that's a separate audio file. We have the B-roll organized by what camera it was shot with, and then we have the main footage of being played on instruments, again organized by what camera it was shot with. So now that all of our files are kind of organized here, we're going to start up a Premiere project. Go to New Project, and we're going to browse, and we're actually just going to put it into this folder here, so it's saved on my desktop, so that's where it's going to be. And we're just going to title this Music Video. Okay. So if you're unfamiliar with Adobe Premiere Pro, this is the general layout. We have our timeline where we drop our clips here to create a sequence. You can also import the media files here to start. And then once you'll see a bit later, once we drop the clips in here, we can go through the editing, like the editing area, the colors, by adding effects here, and then this is where our video will be displayed.
Now let's start our video editing workflow. The first cut of your video is sometimes referred to as an assembly cut or a radio cut. This means you have the video and audio cut to the length of the script or to whatever feels natural. This is an outline of the story and gives you an idea of the overall duration of the video.
Okay, so the next phase of our production is the assembly cut, and this is sometimes referred to as the radio cut. And what we're going to do is we're going to import our audio file, and that's going to give us an idea of the rough length of the entire video. So let's go back to our files here, go to audio, and drop that right into our project. I'm going to click Alt and the scroll key on my mouse, and that's going to show us kind of like where the timeline is. That's roughly going to be around like 48 seconds long. I'm just going to play the audio just so you can hear kind of what we're going to be working with. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to our footage, and you can add the B-roll in whenever, but the way that I had structured in recording this was going to be having the intro kind of using a lot of the B-roll footage, and then when like the guitar solos and other instruments come in, it's going to be using that footage. So let's just click on here and drop in our B-roll footage. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this audio clip all the way down to number 3. I'll scroll out using the Alt and Scroll key on my mouse and kind of bring these a little bit closer together. And then I'm going to lock this layer here. Now we have a couple of really important tools. We're going to be using the cursor tool a lot, and as well as using the razor tool here. That's going to be able to cut the clip. Now what's kind of useful about that is you can cut a clip. So we'll zoom in here. We'll take this clip for example. And what we can do is we can cut it. And then if we find out that we need to extend it, we can actually just extend it and it goes to the same length of the clip. So I'm just going to Command Z and undo it so we get back to our regular size clip. A couple other things here is we have the Snap and Timeline tool, and that's a really useful tool. You'll see if I move the clips together, it gives that kind of this like snapping effect here. So it's always a good tool to have to make sure that your clips line up and there's no kind of blank spaces. Okay, and with this clip selected, we'll see here also in the left-hand side that there are different parameters that we can edit. Things like the position, we can click that and drag it left and right, as well as top and bottom. If you are shooting in like a 4K format, you can use the scale section for kind of like a crop, which would be really nice. But since we're just shooting in 1080p, we're just going to leave that as is. There's also these little buttons here on the side, and those are known as keyframes. And what you can do is you can keyframe in certain effects. So on this clip here, we'll say, let's use opacity. So with the stopwatch activated, we'll set a keyframe here saying that at this point in time, this video is going to be at 100% opacity. And we'll move this slightly back further and we'll drag this to 0. So what will happen is we'll see that kind of animate in. So I'm just going to click undo and undo, and then we can kind of start from fresh. There's also a couple other things you can use here. You can take the stopwatch off the level here in the audio section and kind of decrease some of that audio. We are going to want to keep a lot of the audio in for these B-roll clips to keep the sounds a little bit more diegetic, so it seems a little bit more organic. So we are going to do that. What we are going to do is we're going to start assembling some of our footage, and we're only going to do that just for the first 15 seconds, just so we can get an idea of how this editing works. So what we're going to do is we're going to unlock here and play our audio. And we're going to go to right about here. I'm going to use the razor tool and make a little incision, and that's going to be the length of our intro, and that's where we're going to be using a lot of the B-roll. So for consistency and continuity, we're going to see our clips here. We have one where we're opening the case, turning on an amplifier, plugging in a guitar, unlocking a case, and pressing a pedal. So the pedal one we'll use later because we're just starting, but I think it makes most sense to keep with opening the case here, like unlocking it, and then using the fully open the case, to plugging in the guitar, to turning on the amp. So we're going to want to keep a little bit of the sound here, so let's kind of play through. That's a pretty good scene. So we're just going to cut the ends of it and kind of line it up with our first time here. I'm just going to delete these clips. So we want it around here, we want kind of that click. And the main part of that click is kind of around here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it from there, delete this part of the clip, kind of place that within our timeline. And what I can do then is I can stretch this back out to reach the rest. And so we'll go here, go to our levels, and we're going to drop this down to, let's say, around minus 15 dB, just so we can keep some of that sound. Yep, and then we just pause it with the next. This next beat here is going to be where our next clip comes in, and that's going to be the opening the guitar case. So I'm going to cut a little bit of that shakiness, as you can see there. We can also fix that with one of our tools using the warp stabilizer, and we'll get into those in a later part of the demo. Cool. The next part is the guitar plugging in and then the amp. So we're going to switch this around, move this one over here, and this took a few takes to get, so we're just going to take the cleanest one. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, so that looks like a pretty good take. So we'll just kind of cut the ends and then shorten it. Back to our cursor, click, delete, click, delete. And you want that sound to be around here, that kind of click. And here's the next beat, or the next discernible note. And we're going to go here to where we turn on the light. So once that light goes on as we want. So right around there. So let's just cut some sections around it. Just zoom out. So that's the click. So I'm going to get rid of some of this audio here. What we're going to want to do is line that up right around there. Cool. I'm going to extend this right to the edge here. So this is what our beginning sequence looks like without too much audio editing or color grading. I'm just going to drop the levels here really quick again. That's looking a little loud. But yeah. And then it will play right into our guitar solo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the rest of the footage really quickly for just so we can get on to the next part, and then we'll start beginning the rough cut.
Moving along to the next phase, you can go through your B-roll footage and start adding clips in your timeline. This is called the rough cut. Most video editing software will have customizable effects and transitions to add to the video. Depending on the style of your video, you may want to use these effects sparingly.
Okay, so now we're on to the rough cut of the phase. Now I've done a lot of this in the kind of assembly cut because that was just the way that this video was structured, but I'll show you just the overall outline of what it's going to be. So we're going to start again with a little bit of the introduction here. Quick little solo, goes to the ukulele part. We click on an effect, bring in the other guitar instruments and other layers, and kind of use these overlapping. Now what you can do here, these overlapping videos, so that it'll cut into transition there while still keeping this video underneath, so when it transitions out. Okay, so part of the rough cut, you might want to be doing some things like adding effects. So what we can do is we can go to the effects panel here. It'll take a second to load, but we can go to, there's a bunch of different things here with video effects, video transitions. If we click on one of these, we can see kind of the, kind of the stylization that we could use. If we go to video transitions, this is stuff that we can paste between clips. So one that we use a lot are like dips and fades in audio. So this is like dip to black, dip to white. So I can put this and just kind of drag it onto the beginning of my video. And it's a similar thing to what we did with the opacity. You can shorten it as well, but it's kind of like a similar trick. And there's multiple ways that you can do things in Adobe Premiere. But the best way to learn is just to kind of like feel things out for yourself and see what workflow works best for you. So effects, they can be a little jarring if you put too many of them in a video. Generally, I like to use things like fast cuts or jump cuts, just to keep it a little bit more fresh, and use a different camera angle for some of the shots. I find that's a little bit better than kind of spraying on different wipes or whatever you want for the video. So when you're kind of doing the rough cut, you want to add in your effects and kind of give like a semi-polished video to your stakeholders, and you can say like, hey, this is kind of what the video is. Take a look at the shots, take a look at the B-roll, and you can offer, if you have any extra shots, be like, hey, this is where I thought this would come in here. This is my concerns. Should we change up some of the footage to match the script? Because this is more of just like a quick tutorial and music video, we're not going to be doing too much of that. But yeah, that's just kind of what we're going to be doing for the rough cut. You know, you want to get as much feedback during this phase as possible. So when you're going into kind of like a finer cut where you're doing audio and color editing, you're editing the right clips, as if not to send out like a perfectly colorized video and then find out that's not the clip they want and you have to redo that step. So you want to have your rough cut with the main footage and get as much feedback as you can for moving towards the fine cut.
The fine cut is the portion where you add in the color correction and audio to help polish the footage. If you are working with a production team, this portion may be delegated to another department. As a student, you wear many hats, so it is good experience to make these corrections yourself. Editing color for video can be broken down into 3 steps: profile, correction, and grading. You may have heard of color correction and grading before, but what about profile? A color profile is a predetermined set of parameters or characteristics that is applied to the footage. For example, many DSLR and mirrorless camera enthusiasts will shoot in a log format. This means the footage is exposed in a non-linear fashion, allowing for more creative control over the dynamic range in post-production, even though your original footage may appear flat. Color correction is a technical process that fixes color issues and makes footage appear as naturalistic as possible. The idea is for colors to look clean and real, as human eyes would see them in the real world. Color grading is also technical, but it's more of a creative concern. The color grading process adds atmosphere and emotion to shots by coloring footage in new, often unnatural ways.
Okay, so moving on to the fine cut portion of the video, we're going to be doing some of the color grading. Now this is a stylistic effect. You can add like different tones into your video, or you can kind of change the color profile. So we're going to go into color, and we're going to see this little pane here on the right, and it has a whole bunch of things similar to what you would see in Photoshop. We can change the exposure of this video clip. We can change things like the contrast, and those are all pretty cool. Some of you may have heard of LUTs, and you can get some free ones online, and those are just color profiles that people have made or that you can purchase, and those just kind of add like a certain film gradient to it. Although if we go into the creative side, there are a couple of looks that are kind of pre-made here. As always, you can select like one of the looks and then kind of change the intensity of it. So let's say we like this look. We're gonna add a little bit of faded film, and what I like to do is go to the basic correction, and we'll go to auto just to see what they would do. Now that just blows it out like crazy, so we're going to adjust those settings a bit, and you can change the temperature if you want to. Those are just kind of cool things here. I can Command Z that. And we'll take off the creative look for now, and we'll just go basic. So let's say this is the look that you want, and you have similar exposure in your other scenes. So what you can do is you can copy it, Control C to copy, and you can go to your next clip, on your timeline here, and press Control-Alt-V. And what that'll do is that'll open up a paste attributes file. You can also right-click the file, and it'll give you one of these too. And when you are pasting the attributes, you can choose what gets pasted over. So if you made audio edits, you can click that in. Right now we're just doing the color edits, so if we click that there, that should apply the exact same kind of tone exposure from this clip to the next clip. Now granted, not all your clips are going to be the same exposure, but that is cool if you do have two of the same. I'm going to go through right now quickly and edit this, and then we'll move on to the audio section.
Sound is one of the most important aspects of a video. The first thing to do is to make sure your audio levels are consistent and dialogue is clear. Adobe Premiere Pro has a plethora of audio effects to help with adding space, dynamics, and removing noise from your composition. In addition to cleaning your audio, it is important to add secondary audio to help convey the story. This can be done by adding voiceovers, Foley sound, or music to enhance a scene. Voiceover is a production technique where a voice that is not part of the narrative is heard over the action. Foley sound is the reproduction of everyday sound effects that are added to enhance the video. In addition to adding more realistic sounds to your video, it is also nice to add music to help convey emotion. bensound.com or YouTube Audio Library have a bunch of royalty-free songs to help with your creative projects. Please make sure to read the licensing and copyright agreements, as most free background music does require attribution.
Okay, so now we're going to be moving on to the audio portion of the demo. And what's going to happen here is we're going to be kind of fine-tuning our audio levels to make sure that our kind of sequences match. You can also do a couple of cool audio effects here. If you have like built-in VST software or anything that you've done, you can do a lot of kind of filter and EQ. There's a lot of things that you can do to notch out certain frequencies if you're getting a little bit of buzz. You can also add different things like delay and echo or compression. And what that will do is kind of bring your audio levels to more around the same area. Also, an important audio effect is if you do find that you're recording, like let's say you're doing an interview or you're doing something that requires very clean audio and you're in a loud place, you can use an effect called denoise. So this is a cool effect that you can just throw on, click and drag onto your video clip, and it'll give you certain different parameters. If we go back to editing and we have this clip selected, we can see the denoise down here. What you can do is there's a few different defaults and different wavelengths for processing, and this will kind of take out any of the static or kind of background noise. This is kind of like an EQ setting, so if you do a very intense job, it will sound kind of like the speakers in a funnel. So you always want to kind of remain on the light noise reduction side, unless you're kind of doing that for dramatic effect. So I'm just going to undo this here using Command Z so it's off. You can also click like a parameter and just delete it that way. So let's go back to the audio. And what we're going to want to do is, since most of our noise that comes from the camera is in channel 1, we're going to drop channel 1 just a little bit while raising the audio for audio 3. As this is going to be like our main kind of section, and we'll see the levels going here on the side. What we want to do is we kind of want to keep it above -6 dB to like around -3 dB. That's a pretty good area. If we see it jumping into the red zone here above 0, that'll produce a little bit of clipping, and that's going to be really harsh on our speakers and kind of on our listeners. So we want to keep it roughly around -3 dB to -6 dB, and that's kind of like the general area that we want to keep it for audio. I have mine also setting to autosave, which is good, which is a reminder that you want to Control S every once in a while, just so that you do save your footage in case there is a crash on Premiere's end.
After the fine cut is complete and sent out for edits, we move into the final cut. All of the footage, effects, and audio are meticulously scrutinized for flow and consistency before the final render. After you get the okay, it is time to render. This means converting the source material into a final product. Adobe Premiere Pro has a variety of codecs when exporting video. A popular codec is H.264, which is viewable across many platforms. In Premiere, you can customize your export based on where the video will be used. If your project is for YouTube, try the YouTube Full HD preset.
All right, so for the final here, I do think it looks like a pretty good shot, and we're just going to call this the final cut right now. We're going to go into rendering our video, and there's a few different ways we can do that. What I like to do is, if you're working with different clips, I used to use these cap ends. You just kind of drag that there. That's for the end of the clip, and this is for the beginning of the clip, and you'll see it kind of snaps into place. But this is really useful for if you want to export a certain section of your video, and if you're working with a multiple video, like a longer video file, and you just want to export one section for critique, you can use these to take out a section of your video file. So I can actually just export like this section here if I wanted to. But we're going to do the whole thing, and what we're going to do is we're going to go to File, Export Media, which is also Control M as a hotkey. Cool. And we're going to look at our format. So H.264 is a popular one that most Blu-ray uses, so we're going to go with that. You can change your source, which is really cool. So if you are doing one for Twitter, you can do it like that. If you're doing one for YouTube, you can export it like that. But we're just going to keep the source's high bit rate, which is says in here at 1920 by 1080 with 29.97 frames per second, which is pretty cool. So we're going to do that. You can also change the source settings here if you don't want to match it. You can crop it, and yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the output name. So we're going to go back to our desktop, go to Digital Skill Series, and we're going to type in music video final. Okay, and so that's what it's going to be saved under, and it's going to be saved in our Digital Skill Series. If you want, you could have made a folder that says final or export, and that's kind of where your footage will be saved. And then we will just click the export button and wait for it to render. Okay, so while this is rendering, I'm just going to skip ahead and play a quick final version of the video for you. Hope you enjoy. Thanks for following along in this digital skills series in partnership with Lions New Media Center and the Student Success Center. Now that you have the tools to develop your own creative portfolio, we encourage you to share your work, collaborate with others, and ask questions. And as always, Elena and I will be available online to help you with your creative endeavors.
Make sure to visit the Lions New Media Center Spaces page on the library website, library.mcmaster.ca, to learn how to make the most out of Adobe Creative Cloud. Thank you for your support during this series. We hope to hear from you and see you on campus soon. Bye for now, and thanks for watching.